Yeah. All right, everybody, I think we're gonna start our next session soon, so if everybody can gather around, take a seat. We still have a couple more minutes before our next presenter. Okay, everybody, I hope everybody enjoyed their lunch. I'm glad everybody was able to eat a meal and everything, and welcome back. And first, I just want to give a big shout out to our tech team up there who have been doing a really great job. So let's give them a hand. And also great job to the first round of presenters. So I'd like to welcome to the stage another one of our Creative Shorts fellows, Emma Barrow, who will be discussing her project called Redbird.
Emma Barrow Dawado. I'm a citizen of Cherokee Nation and a filmmaker based in Portland, Oregon. My short started as a feature script, actually, that I wrote in 2021 when I was a fellow of the Native American Media Alliance's Feature Writers Lab. It's about a Cherokee woman fighting to protect her young niece from an unlawful adoption while struggling with her feelings of disconnection from her own culture. I was inspired to write the script by my own family's experience of when my cousin passed and my aunt adopted his daughters. Some of the challenges I faced adapting a feature into a short script was in letting the short stand as its own piece. I'm an overwriter, and so trying to condense the feature into a short was really challenging, and I had to get really specific on what the essence of the story was rather than trying to fit an hour, hour and a half into 12 minutes. We were rewriting the script even during the shoot. I was very fortunate. My producer, Lauren Waters, was able to take the script through a producer's lab with the Southern Producers Lab, and that really helped us with a big rewrite. And then even into the editing process, we worked with a consulting editor and restructured the film then as well, which I think really helped strengthen the project. My hope is that the film highlights the beauty and power of intergenerational living and the importance of understanding ourselves through our community and connections to the land. We shot the film in October on the Cherokee and Muskogee Creek reservations, and we're currently in the final stages of post-production. We've been so fortunate to have the support from Vision Maker Media and getting us to the finish line, and I'm really excited to start submitting to festivals in the next couple of weeks. And then sharing the film within our communities. Thank you, Wado.
All right, this session is going to be a little different. This will be a hybrid session, and we will be joined by Colleen Thurston, and as well as on Zoom will be Brooke Swaney and Monika Navarro. And I will also be moderating this session. Roll the clip.
Your brain knows you're acting. Your brain knows it's not real. Your body doesn't. Coming back to a aligned, grounded, calm place. Because sometimes when you're playing these characters, you can get pretty far out there. My name's Lily Gladstone. I think. Most of the time, my name's Lily Gladstone. I am from Browning East Glacier, Montana, from the Blackfeet Reservation. And I'm a professional actress. Find some more moments that are maybe not in the script. A lot of what I strive for in my work is about having a strong sense of self as an individual is a good starting point. It's but it is the starting point. It's not the end point.
All right, we'll be switching from our screen here to our Zoom panel. Monica and Brooke, would you mind turning on your cameras, please?
Hello.
Welcome. How's it going, everybody? On the Zoom.
I wish I was
Oh,
there.
we're repeating. Yeah, we're gonna probably have a little bit of hiccups here with this hybrid, so bear with us while we work through that. Monica will be discussing a little bit about Firelight Media, and she has some slides that she prepared, so she will be discussing some background information as well as discussing what the in the making film series is about.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Hi, Colleen. Hi, Brooke. Thank you so much to Vision Maker for having me. I so wish I could be there with you all in Oklahoma. I always say yes whenever Vision Maker invites me to do something and to meet the incredible filmmakers that they support. And I'm just, we've had a really warm relationship, and we're always happy to partner, and really proud of the folks that we've been able to support through Firelight, that sometimes have been introduced to us through Vision Maker or Fourth World Media, which is how we got to know Brooke. But yeah, and I live in Brooklyn, so you might hear a lot of street noise in the background. Maybe it's louder for me. I'm gonna try to share my screen, so we'll see how that goes. In our hybrid, hopefully I have the power. Don't judge all my tabs.
No judgment.
No judgment. It looks like it's okay. Woo! Technology, it's working. So I'm gonna just quickly kind of give y'all a broad overview of Firelight Media and our artist programs, and highlight the ones that Colleen and Brooke participated in, and also, excited to hear about their experiences. So how it started, our co-founder Stanley Nelson was mentoring folks. Folks were literally like showing up on his doorstep at his home in Harlem, and him and his wife, Marcia Smith, who is a writer, philanthropist, leader, created the Doc Lab first in Firelight Media, really to kind of formally start mentoring that next generation of filmmakers of color. And we worked actually in the past year in like updating our mission and vision and values, but really wanted to share this mission because we thought a lot about who we are and who we serve and why we do what we do. But our mission is to support the creation, distribution, and impact of documentary media by and about communities of color in all our vibrance and complexity. By providing filmmakers mentorship, funding, and creative development, we seek to advance the art of nonfiction storytelling to realize a more just and beautiful world. And I encourage you to check out our website and dig into our vision and our values, because all of that now is really kind of like guiding and clarifying who we support, why we do it, and how we approach it. But it started with the Doc Lab. And which Colleen is a alum of, and we've got a lot of amazing folks who are alums of the Doc Lab who've come through. But the Doc Lab is an 18-month fellowship for first and second time feature film directors. So it's really, I think what's unique is how long we spend with the cohort. A lot happens over that 18 months, a lot of like creative breakthroughs. And for many folks, it's often, at least it was for me, the first time I was a mentor for Doc Lab, that was the first time I'd been in a room that was all predominantly people of color, and it really like changed my life. I didn't realize how much I was like assimilating or having to navigate like primarily white spaces in like academia, in film, and just how that shifted. But being in this multicultural group, how we weren't having to translate our experiences, but we came with like curiosity and respect, and also a responsibility of like the legacy of folks who like paved the path before us, and responsibility to our communities and sometimes our families that we're telling stories about. So it really, I strived after that first time that I got to participate in a lab as a mentor, how to bring that, or how to be like an authentic leader myself and create that space for other folks. So the Doc Lab, I think, is really special, where folks are able to kind of hone their creative vision, and we see it as much as like creating kind of not just like that next generation of like nonfiction storytellers of color, but also like leaders in the doc field, which I think we've done. Like I've, folks that have created Cousin, that have created the Undocumented Filmmakers Collective, that have been part of Brown Girls or ADOC. Like I think we've just seen like how folks that have come through have also like gone on to kind of create the things that they want to see in terms of like community or opportunities. But that is Doc Lab. You got to be nuts and bolts working on your first or second feature. We have had folks too that like were longtime editors or cinematographers, but this is their first time directing. The Groundwork Regional Lab, which is where there's been a lot of intersection with Vision Maker, where we actually do 3-day labs and kind of go outside the poles of New York and California, which just because a lot of industry is there, like folks have gravitated from, but are not necessarily from, but that's really meant to support people where they are, who are doing place-based work or, want to continue to kind of cultivate work and stories in the community and not have to go necessarily to one of those cities where the industry has like drawn a lot of like talent and resources and kind of cultivating that abundance where you are. So Groundwork has been, and they're kind of like reimagining it. So there's more kind of mentorship and other kind of professional development to kind of take Groundwork to that next level. But those often get nominated by folks. So if you're maybe living in like a region or territory where we might be doing Groundwork, like Vision Maker is someone that we might reach out to say, what folks do you know who might be interested in participating in this lab? But it's like how we met Ivy and Ivan McDonald. They participated in a Groundwork lab and then later were applied to the Doc Lab, Blackfeet filmmakers from Montana. We have Frontline Firelight Fellowship, where folks who've been through our programs, are invited to participate in this fellowship if they're interested in investigative journalism or a deeply reported story. This is a still from Jackie Olive's Death is Our Business, which shot in New Orleans during the height of the pandemic. It's on YouTube. I really recommend it. It's a really beautifully told story about really like grieving that I don't think we've like talked about enough, like how to grieve as a society. But it's Jackie's a very talented filmmaker, and it was really great to work with her in that fellowship. Short films, a clip from Lily Gladstone. Brooke was a part of season 2 of In the Making, which is our partnership with American Masters. That's really looking at artists or cultural icons who are on the rise, folks who in 10, 20, 30 years could be an American master. Brooke, we got introduced to, as I said, through Fourth World. We loved her first short film, and I'll let her talk more about the experience, but we were just so excited to work with Brooke, and it really was like synchronicity. She was able to make this film about Lily, as we knew Lily's like was going to be on like most people's radar who had been sleeping on what an amazing actress she was. But this is a really wonderful partnership. We are finishing season 3 and also making the selections for season 4. So it's just continued to be like a fruitful collaboration because there's just so much talent, both on the filmmaking side and artists or icons to feature for this. And we've had folks like Bunky Echohawk and Sedhil from season 1. Sedhil Rapu did a film about Jonathan Thunder, who's a Minnesota-based Indigenous artist, and excited to be announcing soon who's part of season 3 and 4. Oh, and then I will just say with also short films, we have, and this kind of came out of Groundwork, we now have Homegrown. So those are shorts with regional filmmakers. It actually was piloted as Hindsight, working with Real South and filmmakers in the South that were filmmakers of color and included Puerto Rico. Then that became a pilot for what is now Homegrown, and the first season of Homegrown focused on the Midwest. The current season of Homegrown is Pacific Islanders and Caribbean filmmakers, both living in like territories or part of like a diaspora in the mainland. And we've got like filmmakers from Guam, American Samoa, US Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, and then filmmakers also on the mainland and Native Hawaiian filmmakers participating. So that those will be coming out, those will be premiering at Hawaii International Film Festival, and then will be published in January on a PBS Digital Studio. So definitely stay tuned for those films. But those are like the shorts we commissioned, either those regional films or the In the Making series. with American Masters. Lastly, many of our programs, as I told you, like we started with Doc Lab, and everything has really kind of grown out of Doc Lab. Like we really listen to our filmmakers, and they tell us like the challenges they're facing in the field or in their own careers. And one thing we were hearing pretty consistently is like, despite like the incredible success folks had with like that film that was produced through the Doc Lab, folks would still be struggling to like raise money for like future films or get work. So this is why we created our William Greaves funds, which is the first time we were kind of really doing direct funding, and it is for mid-career filmmakers of color. We started with a research and development fund, and we now also have a co-production fund with PBS. So we're in the selection process now. I would encourage you, if you're like not on our newsletter on our website, you can sign up for our newsletter, but like being on our newsletter or following us on social is kind of the best way to know when there's like opportunities, or the good folks at Vision Maker can give my email to you if you want to like know, hey, I think this is something that like might fit this project or something I'm interested in, and we can let you know, I can let you know like when the next opportunity is. But we just really, critical for us to keep like folks producing and just really kind of like address sustainability. And you know, it's yeah, it's as hard as some of you might be working to fund that first or second film, it can be really hard to fund that third film or that fourth film. So that's why we created these funds. And it's been a really powerful slate. Actually, Monday on Voces on PBS, one of the films that came through this fund, Almost American by Nina Alvarez, will be premiering and also like streaming. Encourage you to check that out.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Monica, for sharing that. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I do have a question.
Yeah.
Kind of came to mind. So what are some type of stories that Firelight Media, more specifically the In the Making series, what stories are you looking for as far as representation?
As far as representation, I mean, that's a good question. We're real. So the creative brief is because we launched the first season, which really was just kind of like filmmakers of color and artists of color. And that was released in 2019. Kiara Lacey was part of that, as well as sorry, I'm a new mom, so I've lost that like ability to like recall names and titles. So like it will come to me, like the filmmaker who made a film about Bunky Echo Hawk, who made like a wonderful short film that Vision Maker supported about like dancers. But I'm so embarrassed that I've like forgotten his name, but there's just part of my brain, all human alive. Thank you. So we changed the brief after season one, partly kind of seeing what was happening in the country. You know, we were designing the brief for season two in 2021. And I think we were thinking about like, given the kind of, given the pandemic, the death of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor, and the kind of like convulsions in society, but also like reflection of like how far this country had to go in terms of like its kind of promise to folks. Like we were just thinking about if artists in the 60s were like making work about the time when the country was undergoing so many societal changes and really looking with like clear eyes at who we are and who we say we are, like how would artists be reflecting that? So we sort of changed the brief for season two, which Brooke was part of looking at like, what is the intersection of kind of like art and social justice, or what are like artists who are like looking back at like history or like geopolitics, like just art that's like speaking to the moment, but trying to make it really broad, because sometimes that is like really grounding in like a history, or sometimes that's just like your work is actually speaking to the times. So I would just say it's that is only like how we kind of defined the brief more, of that like intersection of art and activism, or the role that like art plays in a democracy or around representation. But because it is by like filmmakers of color, and because it's focusing on like Black and brown and indigenous like artists, it really like opens it pretty wide. So that's the only thing that it has to answer is, does it kind of have that kind of political or social cultural like lens to the artist or their work, and or what informs it? And are they someone we can say is in the making? Like, is this an artist, a master in the making? So have they had, in whatever their discipline is, some sort of recognition in their field or by their peers? So with Lily, I think it was her kind of story about being a continually seen as like an upstart, I think spoke to what like lots of like artists of color experience, that you're like always seen as like constantly emerging, when she was this like incredibly established actor. And so I don't, again, I want to give like Brooke time to speak about her own work, but it's like, that's why that one kind of fit, because it's like that got at something in terms of representation. But it still like fit the brief, because also what it means to be like an Indigenous actor in cinema, given that history. So, you know, there's ways that we kind of like, we're looking for reasons to say yes, but there was no question that she was a master in the making. But then there were all these other like themes that like, yes, that fits this theme, and here's why. And I would say similar for like Jonathan Thunder, like he was doing public art, and his public art drew on his like cultural background, but also was like using new forms to explore it, or thinking about what it means when he gets like a big public commission that like literally thousands of people will see every day. So what do you do when you have a platform like that, and how do you stay grounded in like your culture and your like storytelling sensibility? So, and we were excited to work with Sergio Rapu, whose first film, Eating Easter Island, I just loved. So I just knew that like Sergio would do a phenomenal film. So sometimes it's that. I would say Brooke and Sergio like both represented like loved their earlier work, excited to see what they do next, and they like had great artists that they demonstrated access to, and they kind of fit the brief. So, but it's just answering those kind of questions, but trying to make it as expansive as possible. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you very much for sharing that. So just to sort of wrap up your section, what is the end goal for the In the Making series?
Yeah, I'll stop sharing. That's a good question. The end goal. I mean, for me personally, I've like, having started as an independent producer myself and working independently before I started working like within institutions like Firelight and ITVS and World Channel at GBH, I just saw that there was so much strong independent work, and that should just be your calling card to like get to do another film, but that's not always how it is. And I just like had a goal that like these folks who worked so hard and showed their talent, showed their like tenacity, showed what strong producers and how resourceful they are, like they need opportunities to be working for these like national strands. So that was always just like a goal of mine, maybe because I worked in-house at a station and saw how much power and resources there were, and how hard it was to kind of break in and be seen as like one of those filmmakers to be entrusted with those budgets. And it's just been like amazing at Firelight that I've actually had the opportunity to do that, to commission work for someone to produce for Frontline, for someone to produce for American Masters, that I hope that then they will really be able to pitch to anyone, because they'll have demonstrated I made this incredible independent film, but I can also work for a studio or for a commissioning editor. I can do a commission. I can, you know, handle the notes, but I'm still going to stay grounded, and it's still going to have my sensibility, my voice. And I think that, you know, it is very hard to make an independent film. I think it's also good to demonstrate you can do a work for hire, you can do a commission, but how do you stay authentic? How do you keep strengthening that muscle as a filmmaker and producer? So I would say, like, from our funder, yeah, it's a larger goal to keep like Doc Lab alums of the Doc Lab producing for public media, or keep, or you know, them meeting their own mission of like actually funding more filmmakers of color. But I would say very personally for me, I want to help facilitate where folks develop a relationship with those executive producers or commissioning editors at those major strands, so that folks feel really confident that they can pitch to anybody and start to build. I would say the other thing, we want people to build a body of work. So how do you start building a body of work when that first independent film might have taken you 4 or 5 or 8 years?
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. And to sort of transition, we would really like to have Brooke introduce herself and maybe give a little bit of background information about what made you get into filmmaking, and a little bit more more in depth about your project with Firelight.
Thanks, Jordana. Chasal to everybody. I'm just saying good day to you. I'm learning Salish, so I'm trying to practice what I'm learning. It's nice to be here. I'm zooming in from the Flathead Reservation, which is home to my mom's family and tribe. I'm Bitterroot Salish descendant, and I'm a Blackfeet tribal member. Just where I started with my filmmaking journey, I would say I started as an actor in like community theater as a kid, and then transitioned from doing wacky community theater in college to writing some of that stuff. And my friends encouraged me to go to film school, and then somehow I found myself in film school making films. I've always had this strong feeling that media is the kind of great equalizer in being able to tell our stories and get our stories out there, and to start thinking about perspectives other than your own. And that's really kind of what has been my motivation.
Awesome. Very cool. Thank you for sharing that. So next question, what really sparked and ignited you to tell this story, and why did you feel like this story was important to tell?
Well, when I saw, like, it wasn't necessarily a story or this story, it was seeing this, call for applications from Firelight Media for this In the Making series, and that they wanted to, back to highlighting, somebody who would be a master in the making. And I really kind of latched onto, who is a master in the making, and who are the people that I knew at the time that I thought, oh, this would be amazing to do a profile piece on that person. And Lily was one of those people who I've known for years. And it just so happened that, like, making the film kind of coincided with, or actually before, her career really blowing up. I mean, we've always known that she's amazing and super talented, and now it's just really gratifying to see the world celebrating her for her talents. And yeah, so that's kind of where I just had this inkling that it would be great to feature her.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you mentioned you were from the Blackfeet tribe, is that right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So how does this story really connect to your community, and how can this story really inspire a younger generation to get into acting or filmmaking, or just the filmmaking industry in general?
Yeah, so something that was really important to me was to show Lily being connected to community, even though she has spent a lot of time, living off the reservation, but she's also has like deep roots on the reservation. And to see her go back home, I mean, in the short film, you can see all of those things. So like the film is also telling that narrative of, you can go home, you can help in your community, and you can also like encourage youth to do this. And I'd known that in years past that she used to give acting workshops, to Native youth around the state. And so I wanted to show, how she does that, and that she does do that, and to document that. So we worked with Browning Public Schools and got her into the high school there, and did this, acting workshop. And it was really fun to, inspire some kids. And, whether or not they'll continue on the path, you just never know. But at least like, give them the opportunity to see something that they can do, and that's achievable.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree. I come from the Winnebago tribe in Nebraska, and we're also a really small community, and I really feel empowered as well to work with youth. And I really am interested, and I'm glad that you were able to connect with youth back in your community, because I always say, like, none of the youth don't know what they're interested in until they experience it. So to
Mhm.
hear that you were able to bring Lily back to be able to host those type of workshops is really, inspiring, and I hope that would encourage a lot more filmmakers to be able to bring their education and their experience back to their communities. So
Mhm.
thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I got a couple more questions. Okay, I think that might have been it for Brooke's sort of section, and I also will have some follow-up questions after Colleen's jumps into her topics. So Colleen, can you also give me a brief explanation of what made you get into filmmaking and explain a little bit more about your project?
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, everyone. Hi, Brooke. Hi, Monica. It's good to be here with you. So Chifoya, Colleen Thurston. My name's Colleen Thurston. Really lovely to be here. I'm a citizen of the Choctaw Nation. Nobody ever comes here. So thank you for being here. I'm from Tulsa. I live in Tulsa. And I got into filmmaking. I went to college in Arizona to get away from this place. And I was dating a boy, and he was studying media arts, and he said they make movies and they watch movies. And I said, you can go to college for that, and promptly changed to my major. And then I got a degree in watching movies and went to grad school. I went to a very niche grad school in Bozeman, Montana, for documentary filmmaking, specifically focused on like environmental filmmaking, got my MFA, and then I went into television production. I moved to DC. I worked for the Smithsonian Channel. I've worked for a couple different PBS stations, and yeah, that's kind of my path. I've always worked in documentary, never particularly been that interested in learning how the sausage is made for the movies that I love, so I stick to documentary.
Very cool. Thanks for sharing that. And Whitney, tech crew, do you have our slides pulled up for Colleen and Brooke? Give us uno momento.
Your brain knows you're acting. Your brain knows.
We had a couple slides prepared, but Monica came with her logos and all that jazz. There's a clip of Colleen's project.
And we were removed as Choctaw people to this country. When they got here and they saw this river, they must have felt better because they knew there was water. It must have been soothing to their soul in a time when they were very hurt to know that they were going to survive.
The river feeds this whole valley. If you go all the way back to any industry or anybody coming to this valley, the only thing they've been after is natural resources. There was never to build something here. It was always to take something from here.
My Choctaw grandfather worked for the Federal Army Corps of Engineers, building dams on waterways throughout Oklahoma. There is a long cycle of resource exploitation in this area in the Choctaw Nation, and it didn't end with the construction of these dams.
The lawsuit involving the Kiamichi River being taken from Pushmataha County to Oklahoma City is heading back to court this morning.
It has been a hot topic for residents in Pushmataha County. For the past year, they have been in court fighting to keep water in their river.
The general consensus is it's not going to happen in our lifetime. I'll believe it when I see it, but it always seems to kind of happen.
If we go to this diversion, this isn't enough water for any species to survive. Worst case scenario, the water becomes so unusable that people will have to move to cities to relocate.
rely on these reports citing about some of the terrible things that are gonna happen in the river.
Yes, because even taking the run out water, that's what we use to get my water available to go downstream.
And their attorney called me yesterday afternoon and told me not to go.
Really?
Yeah,
Their attorney called you and told you not to come.
yeah.
Every time something happens, it affects the river. And that of course affects all of us, but it affects all of the wildlife here, the vegetation. I think the people that still rely on this river will have to find another source.
Things aren't seeming to be done right. They're definitely not done on the up and up. All of us are stakeholders, and how many of you were at the closed door meeting? Me,
If grandpa was sitting here with us right now and I was like, your work displaced a lot of people. Yes, it did a lot of good, but also like, what about these people who often feel forgotten? Purely speculating. What do you think grandpa would say?
we're literally at the tip of the spear of water conservation that's going on across the world.
Back to that prayer and that need to survive and the scientific aspects. If we can nail those together, you know, how powerful that can be.
I'm hoping that we can create change and get legislation that will protect our freshwater sources and will start giving freshwater sources in Oklahoma the respect and protection that they deserve.
The odds are stacked against people like us. It may. So be sure to be there.
All right, awesome clip. So Colleen, can you please tell me how this story really connects to your community?
It's shot here. It's filmed here. Yeah, I mean, my community, I'm born and raised in Tulsa. So I'm kind of in diaspora twice removed. But my family's from down here. Caddo is just a town that's just north of here. That's where my family is from. This film takes place east of here though, near Tallahena, which is beautiful part of the state. And yeah, I mean, I really just started meeting people, talking to them about water issues. The tribe has been dealing with water rights issues for decades, starting with the construction of some of these dams down here in the reservation. And I just started meeting people and listening and listening and listening and letting the community guide the story in the direction that it went.
Very cool. And you talked about your film being about water rights. You know, as we know, a lot of our communities and our tribes deal with water rights issues. So why do you feel like it's important that we, you know, us as Native people continue to fight for our water rights and also document that?
I mean, we are still at risk. Water is the next gold. People think about water rights issues being in the Southwest, the Colorado River, the western part of the US, but this is really like it's becoming a huge battleground state. It's also interesting because while this side of the state is reservation, we're not on trust land. And so that is something that the powers that be use against us. And they say, well, the tribes don't have the same kind of rights to the water, even though it's in our treaties, because this isn't trust land. There's also issues of power companies, energy companies. They can actually get eminent domain. And right now there is an energy company it's a shell company owned by a Chinese corporation that has a permit for the water in the Kaimishi River. And if they implement eminent domain, which is the direction they're trying to go, it will displace 500 families and homesteads. And of course, we know these folks already come from that history of displacement. So yeah, I mean, it's very important. We've rebuilt our culture here after being displaced, after being removed and experiencing cultural genocide. We have redefined who we are. on this land. So if Choctaws, if other people, on their reservations get displaced again, then it's that reenacting of a cycle of cultural genocide.
Yeah, totally agree. Thank you for sharing that. And I watched it and it's really interesting and I really enjoyed it. So thank you for putting together such a great project. So I'll ask the question, when can we expect to see your film?
It is currently, it's in post. It's finishing right now. We have an amazing composer, Samantha Crane, who's also Choctaw. She's working on the score right now. East Coast Digital is our finishing house, our post-production house. They're doing the color as we speak. And so we're doing kind of the typical festival route. We're hoping to premiere it early next year. We're probably going to do community screening starting in like November. So if you want to come down for that, that'd be cool.
Sweet. I'll be there. Let's see here. I think okay, so we have a lot of Creative Shorts fellows in the room and, this project was, a feature length. How is that process different in the production as far as the feature length and, short film? Like, what does that process look like?
I mean, I feel like you can make a short film. You can make it in a matter of months. You can make it in a year. I've been working on this since 2018. So that was the biggest thing for me. When we started, I was like, oh, so you just multiply, like if you're making a short that takes, a couple of months or whatever, maybe a year, and you just like multiply the time and maybe it'll take a year and a half. And I was wrong. And I think it was Monika who told me, somebody told me, oh, the average length of making a feature doc is 7 years. And I was like, okay. Well, I'm not doing that. And it will be 7 years when the film is released.
Awesome, very cool. Just to let everybody know, Brooke and Colleen are also mentors for our a lot of our Creative Shorts fellows. Brooke is actually a mentor for Sabrina and yep, give her a hand. And Colleen is also mentors a lot with our Native Youth Media Project out of Native Lens. So they're also giving back to their communities as being really seasoned professionals and giving back to their community and inspiring, our younger generation. So for everybody here in attendance, I would love to hear some encouraging words to some of our fellows on, I guess, how they can grow as a filmmaker. So if, whoever wants to jump in.
Yeah, I mean, I would say these fellowships, I haven't gone through the Creative Shorts Fellowship, but having gone through like the doc lab with Firelight, all the mentorship you can get is going to help you make the best product, or the best creative product you can, best film. Firelight was the first really intensive lab situation that I was able to get in, and it was a game changer. And I feel like a lot of these fellowships are set up to increase your success. So keep apply for all the fellowships, do all the labs, and don't be afraid to ask for help. Reach out to people that you've met and say, hey, do you have some time to look over this treatment? Or do you have some time to watch a rough cut or whatever it is?
Okay, sweet. Brooke, do you want to chime in?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think, something that I've been thinking about as far as, working and learning is to ask questions. And no matter how silly you might think that they are, I think it's always good to ask questions. And also communication, like that's something that I struggle with, and just making sure that you're communicating as much as possible is really like one of the biggest lessons, I think, like for life too, so.
Awesome, thank you, Brooke. And Monika, I have to ask you, what are some recommendations or tips that you can give for anybody that are interested in applying to any of your programs?
Can folks see us, or are we just like voices coming from,
What?
You're a tiny icon.
or a tiny icon? Okay. Sorry, I just see the main stage, so I didn't know if I'm just like, you hear my voice, but you don't see me. Okay, you see the tiny icon. Folks applying. Well, one, I think it's good to like try and build a relationship with folks that are working at those organizations. Those are all people who love film, love filmmakers, and their job is to be a resource for you. So whatever that looks like at a festival or an event like this, or, you know, following up, it's just having that point of contact so you can introduce yourself and talk about your work and finding out, am I a fit now? And if not now, like later, or are there other resources or programs you would direct me to? Like, I think about when I first met Colleen at the Big Sky Film Festival when she was one of the early like Fourth World cohorts, and when Ivan was like a grad student at University of Montana, and his younger sister Ivy was just like helping him out because she wanted to hang out in the room. And I just think like how profound that was, like having all these Indigenous filmmakers and Pacific Islander filmmakers, and just seeing the way that like they were supporting each other and coming together. And we actually, like, that was the first year of Fourth World where it like then traveled to Seattle, so like Colleen and some other folks like came back and they had like given notes on their treatments. And so everything Colleen is talking about is so true. Like, there's resources in the room, those other folks sitting next to you in the room, those are your peers. Those are folks who are going to be in the trenches with you, and you can support each other. Even as you're maybe competing for the same things, you can just kind of keep strengthening each other's like work and voice. Or, you know, if you have, you know, or like working on a pitch, even if it's like pitching one-to-one for like meetings. So I think it's important to like develop your peer-to-peer like network, try to develop relationships with those folks, because it was just like very impactful for me at that time working at ITVS, but meeting Ivy and Ivan and seeing that they were like creatives and they had like lots of stories they wanted to tell, and that Ivan had like started his own series, and, you know, just we stayed in touch. And so then I've just seen and tracked like their careers as they've built that confidence and they've developed that relationship. But I would say the only other advice I think is like, stay true to who you are. This is something I admire so much in Colleen, and why she was a part of the doc lab, in that, and I think, you know, why these films, when they're not fully funded, take more time, is it's such a layered film, you know, about like the economy, about history, about culture. It's a personal story. And, you know, and Colleen's also teaching and has a family. Like, no one's giving her all the money to make just this film right now, which maybe, you know, if they did, she could take a sabbatical and do it. So it's also like giving yourself some grace, that many of us are balancing like jobs and caretaking or volunteering, and we're making this film. So, you know, it may take some time, but sometimes there's like a beauty or like an evolution that can come with that in your own like kind of your own abilities or your own creative thinking. Like, I think of Jude Shahab and her film Q. That film was like made over 8 years, but Jude like grew as a person as she was making that film. And there's like there's like knowledge that was gained that only because she made it over that like whole period of her life. So I think just also like, you are like, own where you are, and that there's so much to learn, but also that like you are carrying so much with you, and you've got like a voice, and, you know, there will be space for that story. You will find champions and collaborators, but, you know, I think it's important to stay grounded in who you are, because that's often like the powerful thing that connects other folks to the work. You know, like that's what like made us be like excited to support Colleen and Brooke, because they had like such a clear vision and sense of who they are and the stories they want to tell, and like their whole like ethical approach to it. And that's something that like folks want to get behind. So, you know, there's things like, yes, make sure like your work fits like the mission and you fit the requirements, but those are all things that you can do. But I think the harder thing is like building those relationships like authentically and staying grounded. That would be my advice. Maybe it's like a bit woo, but I actually think that's the thing that is why we love film and art and what inspires us and the role that like it plays. But I think that, you know, artists bring so much value to community and to society, but there's just not enough support for them. So I think that's why you kind of have to scaffold it or talk to other folks. Like, how are you doing it? Are you teaching? Are you working? Are you doing this? You know, like you've got to learn from other folks. Or for me, like being like a new parent, like I talk to other folks. How do you do this now? Like as a working parent. And so, you know, I also still like learn from people in this new chapter in my life. But I think that if you're here already with Vision Maker, you already are like being supported by an amazing organization that is like got a big history that you're a part of. So have like confidence in that too. That is also something that you can go out and say to people. I'm a Vision Maker supported filmmaker. That is actually going to open a lot of doors. So like, you know, stand like proud in who you are and like you're already here. So that means that you've like accomplished a lot and have proven you've got a story to tell.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I would like to, at this time, open up the floor for a Q&A. Does anybody have any questions?
Well, I put in the chat, I'm just wondering if Monika can share about In the Making and whether folks, you know, in the room, maybe you have an idea, can apply in the future.
Thank you, Brooke. Yeah, we did an open call for season 3, and those films will be announced soon. They're going to be screening this fall at festivals, and that's when we'll announce those films once they'll have their like first public exhibition. And we're in the process of selecting season 4. And this time we did just like a invitation or nomination, but very happy that Vision Maker nominated some folks. So there's some good applications we're looking at and making decisions over the next month. And this is a super super positive like partnership and relationship, and there's more to do. So we absolutely believe we're going to be doing a season 5. So folks that didn't apply for season 4, you know, in 2025, we will we'll have a call for applications for season 5. So I'd encourage you to apply then. And I see a question in the chat. Jordana, do you want me to answer that?
Yes, please.
So it says, what about cross-border stories? So many of our nations are cross-border nations, and North America did not have tribes separated. The lines crossed us. How open are you to cross-nation, cross-geographical stories? Yes, this actually was a question that first was posed to me by a filmmaker who was actually based in Canada, but they're like, their tribal nation like traverses what is now the US and Canada. So for us, some of our monies do come from like public media. So the answer is yes. They're actually like, if you live in a nation or territory that does like traverse both, you actually are entitled to like US public funding. I've done some investigation with this, and we are interested in those cross-border stories. Also, that William Greaves Research and Development Fund, that's actually meant to highlight like folks that are Black and Indigenous backgrounds in the US, Mexico, Colombia, and Brazil. But if say you live somewhere and it's actually like, it is both Canada and the US, like we can talk, there's possibly a way we can still like support you.
I think, Dan, did you have a question? Okay, thank you.
It's actually for Colleen. The whole issue with the river and all that with well, I'm wondering what McGirt had to do with any of it. I mean, it does declare it's still a reservation. That should give, and with my own tribe, we've got an environmental office that has some authority, which I don't know if that avenue had been explored in trying to save the river.
Yeah, I know I don't want to speak too much for the water protectors and the people that are doing this fight, but they were hoping when McGirt was decided that would bring more protection. But like I said, it's not trust land, so that complicates things. And yeah, I mean, the tribe is currently involved the tribe has also, they have a historic water settlement with the state of Oklahoma that also affects the watershed and how they work vis-a-vis the state. So there's a lot of powers at play. It's feds, it's the state, and it is the tribe. And the tribe is now very involved. There's an environmental office that that they're involved on many different fronts. Potential, I don't know how much I can speak about this, but yes, they're involved.
Thank you.
Can I just say a little bit about like the Firelight Doc Lab?
Please.
For anyone that is interested in applying, and Monica, sorry if I'm overstepping, but it's a 2-year fellowship program, and it's very hands-on. You're workshopping your film, you're sharing your work samples, you're sharing your written materials. I remember the first gathering we had, I got up and I shared my work sample, and then we talked through it. And Chloe Walters Wallace, who's another Firelight superstar, said, Colleen, this is the film that you're talking about is not the film that is represented in your work sample. You need to work on that. So getting that feedback and knowing, okay, this really needs to reflect what I'm doing. I sat on the phone with Monica one time in the middle of the pandemic in tears, because funding had dried up for a minute, and Monica went through my budget line by line and said, okay, you need to pay yourself more. You need to do this. You need to do that. And brought my budget up. I think my original budget was like $150,000. And then we got it up to 350, which actually now has been what the film has cost. So just getting that kind of feedback, that kind of workshopping, there's a huge peer mentorship aspect. And some of the folks that were within my cohort are some of the incredible superstars of the doc industry now. I mean, like Oscar nominated. And we've maintained those relationships. So that has really just solidified me as having that network, like Monica mentioned, not just of mentors and of people that can help, because they're also introducing us to folks from Ford Foundation, folks from Sundance, programmers and gatekeepers, and all of these folks that are there to help you make your best film, but also creating this incredible network of peers. So highly recommend, if anyone is interested in applying to the Firelight Doc Lab, and I can, help you look over your application or something. I'm really happy to do that as well.
Do you have any more questions? If not, we could probably wrap this session up.
Colleen, I was just going to add to that on behalf of Juliana Brannon, our director of programs and projects, which you all know, and she couldn't be here with us today, but she is going to want to have a coffee date with you over all of this, because as you all know, she's a huge advocate for just finding those funds. And I could see the 4 of you just like really having a really great brainstorming session about what Firelight Media could do.
And Juliana went through Firelight as well.
So yeah, there's your connection. So yeah, I'll turn it over to you, Jordana.
Okay, well, I just want to first of all thank everybody for joining on the Zoom, and also thank you, Brooke and Monica, for joining us as well, and Colleen for joining us in person. We wish that you both could be here, but we feel your presence here, and definitely thank you all for sharing your knowledge and your expertise. And yeah, that concludes this session. So let's give these ladies a hand.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your brain.
All right. Okay, mic check. Okay, to wrap up our last fellow, we have Rochelle Smallwood, who will be presenting her project on the boat.
Hello, everybody. First of all, I invite you all to stand up and just stretch, twist, and feel in your feet the ground that you're on, feel in your lungs the air that we're breathing. And goodness cheese to the Choctaw Nation for inviting us here and for taking care of the land and welcoming us. Feel free to stand up as long as you all need. It's very important. Like, chill, enjoy, walk around, take care of your bodies. Kachgun Yuchat Duasauk, Leka Kenach Rochelle Smallwood. My Tlingit name is Kachgun, and the one I was born with was Yiskanot Tla. I'm Tlingit on my mom's side and Mexican on my dad's side. And I live in my maternal homeland in Okwanani, also known as Juneau, Alaska. And you'll see right there, that's my grandmother. And she grew up on a fishing boat in Alaska before Alaska was even a state with her family. Her parents were Tlingit and they spoke in Tlingit to each other. And she had 5 siblings and they grew up fishing and hearing their parents speak the language. And in 2020, me and my grandma got in a language revitalization program together. And even though I was generations after her, there was like a blockage in our throats, and the language was kind of stuck there because her mom was in the residential school. So even though she could hear the language, there was like, they didn't want to teach the language to the children, and there was just a blockage in their throat. And so on top of that, we're trying to learn the language in the system that took it away from us. So people outside of our culture were really picking up on it because they don't have like the trauma there. And then they'd be like, you're saying it wrong, to my grandma who like spoke up hearing it differently. And all the time I was really wishing like, I just want there to be Tlingit musicals and albums and TV shows and soap operas. Like I would learn so much better that way. But they didn't really exist. And so that's what like my goal was, to kind of create that and have ways of healing and joy. Because so often like we're aware of the pain and that's like in the language revitalization program we were in, we would take like a language class and then like 3 other really heavy classes. And I'm like, we need joy. We need to be working on the land and doing our cultural activities and like telling our ancestors it's okay, like we're in a different place and we can speak the language again. So for this project, it's called On the Boat, and it tells the story of my grandmother hearing the language growing up and then transitioning to English, but then later in life hearing the language again, relearning it through joy, and now she's on the boat and she's the one speaking Tlingit to her family. So in a lifetime, a language can almost be lost but be found again. And it's a concept album, so the songs start in Tlingit, then they transition to English, but then back to Tlingit again, and each song has a music video that accompanies it. Right now we're in pre-production and I'm working with musicians to write the music, and then we'll start filming the music videos. So yeah, and looking for more funding because I want to pay all the artists. But Gunesh Sheesh, everybody, and it's been an honor to see you all and hear all your stories. So thank you all, Gunesh Sheesh.